Welcome to BSRM Presents Straight Talk. This is Zafar Sobhan. I'm in conversation today with the new Executive Director of Brac, Mr. Asif Saleh. Asif, welcome to the show and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me in the show.
I've been wanting you on the show for a long time, and it's great that this is the perfect opportunity. And of course, not only are you now the new Executive Director, I think the other news, the major news for Brac is the stepping down of the founder and chairman, Zafar Sobhan. Tell me a little bit about working with someone such as him.
Thanks, Zafar. Actually, it's a very profound news for the organization because he has been the founder and the organization is 47 years old. He has been a very integral part of this organization. So when he turned 65, he decided to step down from being an executive director in 2001.
Right, 18 years ago.
18 years ago, and then he hired the first executive director other than him. But he was still the executive chairman, so he kind of came every day to office and played a role in the strategic level and stuff. But then this is a new transition where he's even stepping down from being a chairperson. And he's taking a role of a more chairman emeritus role, where he can observe or he can...
all of these various steps are more or less unprecedented in Bangladesh. Someone voluntarily relinquishing the executive director role at the age of 65 and then stepping away. I'm sure had Sir Abid wished to stay as the chairman, there would have been no objections among the board anywhere in Brac.
Absolutely.
This is something he did himself.
Absolutely, and he's been thinking about succession for a long time. And since June of 2000 last year, we started doing the global strategy formulation, and big part of the global strategy is how do you kind of create a global Brac where all these various Brac entities come together under one umbrella, which has been very much now under him because he has started all these organizations. He has been the super glue that kept it all together. So he has been thinking about how do you kind of create a structure which kind of keeps it all together. So as part of this, basically, he started saying that this transition is the first step, but he's going to spend the next few months in more focusing on exactly how this governance model will work. But again, I think Brac has been a path breaker, and he himself has been a path breaker for such a long time in many different aspects.
Well,
this is
for
just
me,
another
what I love most about the Brac story is we all know, of course, what Brac has done and achieved for so many people here in Bangladesh. In a sense, after 40-something years, that's almost a given. But what I love about Brac is the global vision, is the global ambition, the notion that an organization based in Dhaka, Bangladesh can lead the world. I think it's very powerful, and it says so much about us, and it says so much about Sir Abid.
Absolutely, and this is exactly what distinguishes Brac from others, because it's this ambition, this vision that, what he says to us all the time is that small is beautiful, but large is necessary, right? So for resource-constrained countries, mostly in Global South, you can't think small. You need to think big scale. And what do you need? How do you do effective delivery?
Well, everything in Bangladesh requires scale.
Absolutely, absolutely. And because otherwise, you can make everything very beautiful, pretty, working in a small scale, but that doesn't impact. So how do you have that effective impact? So when Bangladesh was in the very early stage of poverty, you started with a microfinance program, but then he quickly moved into other aspects. When he saw that village organizations actually need education and they cannot send their children to school because of lack of school, he thought that he's going to create schools across the country. Then at some point, Brac ran 40,000 schools, right?
Right, that's right.
This one-room school
over a
model.
million kids in non-formal primary education programs, if I'm not wrong.
So far, 12.3 million kids have graduated out of our schools. So every single household got a visit from a Brac healthcare worker during the oral rehydration saline. You all remember the campaign in the 80s and stuff, or in the television. And so that vision that he had, that I'm going to impact in a massive way, but at the same time, the ability to execute effortlessly. When those actually matched, and that's where real change happens. And that's basically what he taught us, and the organizational culture has developed around that. That, you can't just dream big and not execute. So there's a lot of focus on how you do it, how you scale, how you design programs. And him, he's such a unique combination. I mean, I don't think we'll ever be able to replicate that kind of leadership within the organization, where on one hand you had that unique social sensibilities that we know. This is the guy who designed the ultra poor program, which has been now replicated in 46
married with
countries.
the management and administrative
Absolutely.
capabilities. That is an extremely
That
unusual
management ability
combination.
and also business savviness as
Of
well.
course, yeah.
He understands business so well. You know, some of the most successful business enterprises
Yeah.
has been set up by him as well. If you
Yeah.
look at Brac Bank, he started focusing on the SME with a very social focus on focusing on the small and medium sector, which has been the missing middle as we know it. And then that Brac Bank has become a most profitable bank in the country now,
Yeah, it's a good
serving the SME banks, as SME sector. 47% of the portfolio is actually SME sector as well, and where other banks.
And does Brac also work with a lot with non-residents, migrant workers?
Yeah, I mean there are very few segments that that Brac doesn't touch because there's an organizational ethos, which he says all the time that, you know, if you want to stay relevant as an organization, you have to come up with solutions to new social challenges. So you need to be on top of what is the big emerging issues. So even microfinance.
Well, sure, and it has to change as
Absolutely.
Bangladesh changes.
Even
Bangladesh's needs change.
Completely, and as microfinance, for example, is not your traditional microfinance of these few village organizations of women's anymore. I mean, there are a lot of new kinds of products that has come up, savings products, credit products for different segments. Migrant workers is one.
As people need them,
As people need them. There are one for job holders and various catered toward that kind of thing. So that is the story of Bangladesh, and that is the story of
now what I
Brac
love is
as
that
well.
we're taking this story outside. If you look at the work Brac has done, let's say in Afghanistan, look at the work it's done in Africa. I mean, what I love is the notion that, look, we are doing something here, and why can't we export it? Why does it have to be that, you know, when it comes to development, it's always countries in the West?
Yes.
You know, it's always organizations in the West, and, you know, we're always recipients of either funding or expertise or what have you. But why can't we be the experts? And this is it. I mean, when you think about it, who better to provide services to the continent of Africa than Brac International?
Absolutely. So that is the traditional conventional wisdom that Brac is challenging, right? So so if you are close to the problem, you understand the solution, you understand the people much better than anybody else. And Bangladesh being the best example.
Absolutely,
And so can you take that same ethos, same culture of finding solutions and scaling them to other parts of the world? Because you know, we think differently, we think frugally, we think scale.
Well, like, because we've been through it ourselves. I mean, it kind of makes a lot of sense that if you're talking about providing services elsewhere in the global south, obviously people from the global south themselves, you would imagine, Bangladeshis organizations like Brac should be able to do a better job. They will really understand the needs of the service recipients elsewhere. Now, on that note, we have to take a small break, but we'll pick up this thread after the commercial. Thank you very much. This is Dhaka Tribune editor Zafar Sobhan in conversation with Executive Director of Brac, Asif Saleh. Please join us after the break. Welcome back to BSRM Presents Straight Talk. This is Dhaka Tribune editor Zafar Sobhan, and I'm joined in conversation today by Executive Director of Brac, Asif Saleh. Asif, before the break, we were talking a little bit about this global vision of Brac. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about that. Where does Brac now go? It's 2019. What is the next step? What is the global vision? What is Brac Global? Talk me through that a little, please.
Thanks. Actually, Brac is a very target-driven organization. So our founder has set a target for us that by 2030, we must reach 250 million people with our services. So that is quite unique. So that means we have to expand.
What's the number right now?
It's about 130 million. So
so it's almost double.
Double it, yeah. But that would be in different countries.
In different countries, yeah.
So that would mean that we need to establish and expand our operation in Africa quite significantly in the next few years. So that's something that we're going to focus a lot on in terms of where are the more challenged community, where are the people who are not getting the hard to reach areas where they're not getting the services. So that's going to be a big focus in terms of global expansion. In terms of Bangladesh, Bangladesh's reality is also changing, right? In a
Yes.
sense that you see that country is going through a massive change.
Yeah.
On one hand, there's also still, a large number of people who are still in extreme poor. We have about 20 million people of them.
Right.
So we got to get them out of poverty. So that's going to be a big focus going forward. But at the same time, looking at the other segments of the society.
Providing services to people who've taken that first step.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you get them, graduate them to the next level where they
Right.
can support themselves and you don't need to provide them support. But secondly, the other thing that is changing that when we are talking to our clients, we are seeing that their aspirations are changing. They're much more aspirational now.
Yeah.
So when 20, 30 years ago, the issue was about getting access to basic services like education and health.
Yeah.
Now they're not happy with those anymore. Now
They want opportunity.
They want opportunity. They want better quality services.
Right.
So I want better quality education.
They assume that they can have healthcare, but they want good healthcare.
Good healthcare. And then to match with that, they have the willingness and ability to pay as well.
Sure.
So that means that as a country, as we are progressing, we are becoming middle-income country, we are also going to get more independent, self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So that's where BRAC can play a role.
How much is BRAC's focus? BRAC stands for Bangladesh Rural Advancement Committee.
Right.
But as Bangladesh urbanizes, how much of BRAC's focus is moved to the urban areas of Bangladesh?
Absolutely. So this is becoming gradually a much bigger focus than before. So we started our first urban program in 2015, and then increasingly our services are also catering to the realities and changing needs of the urban population. But this is not, of course, the urban middle class per se, but urban poor mostly.
Right.
For example, in this year we started Brac Academy, a new kind of school in Kumilla, which is not your traditional one-room school. It's a multi-room class schools, much better quality and educated teachers with a lot of infrastructures focusing on 21st century skill sets. How to be more analytical, how to be a critical thinker, music, creative thinking, creative skills. All of those are factored in the curriculum design. So if this works out, then we want to expand BRAC Academy to all the districts of Bangladesh.
Sure.
So at least you have one good quality school where people can go to. But the difference with the others is also the financing mechanism, right? So we are not depending on grant for that. We are creating a model that it can be self-sustaining over time. So we are looking at more like a social enterprise approach.
Right.
And that's where I think there's a lot of opportunity for social enterprises and NGOs who are struggling in general now in Bangladesh, thinking around the foreign aid is drying up. There's a big opportunity to work in those areas where sometimes public service is failing, and on the other hand, people are going to private sector where they are paying a big amount for better services, but they're not getting the services.
No, I think this is actually the genius of Bangladesh in, sort of the NGO sector, which has in many ways been led by BRAC. You see, there are many problems in this world which cannot be solved either by the public sector nor the private sector. There has to be an intermediate sector.
Absolutely.
Health and education are two very good examples of this because, there's no way you can educate everyone in the country. Get a profit and make money off of it. There's no way you can keep everyone healthy and make money off of it. But at the same time, if everything is government delivered, then that has its limitations as well.
And that creates also competition disruption in the market because then government public services, they also want to up their game.
Up, of course.
And on the other side, private sector basically thinks they can't also charge whatever they want because they have competition as well. And for social organizations, because we are not going to sort of charge, we're not motivated by profit. So as a result, our main, as long as we are cost neutral, we are okay. So I think basically that's where I think we can make a huge difference by bringing quality healthcare, quality education. We are doing something.
Bridging that divide between public and private. I think that's exactly where you want to be.
And there are also sectors which needs disruption, like migration sector. We know that it's such a huge need for us to send people abroad.
But it's so rife with exploitation. It's so rife with problems.
And there's absolutely no competition. So as well, and people there are syndicate who are working at it. So we, for example, now have started a social enterprise called Brac Provaj Bandhu Limited, which has gotten license from the government as a recruitment agency. So we can send people abroad. So now we have migration centers across the country.
I didn't know that.
A country where we can source people so we can take out the middlemen altogether. We can skill them in our skilling centers. And the last leg was the sending them a job placement. That's we are also completing now.
Okay.
So that means the migration cost, where people used to pay extensive amount of money, that's going to go down significantly. So we're going to be under the ceiling that government provides on one hand, and number two, the jobs are going to be a skilled jobs and better jobs and guaranteed jobs. They're not going to
Again, filling that gap. So I think a lot of what Brac does, it seems, is it looks and it sees, okay, where are the gaps?
Absolutely.
Okay, and how can I fill this? What are the, you've got the private sector's providing A,
Yeah.
the government is providing B.
Yeah.
Where's the gap? How do we fill it? How does this translate to the work Brac does outside the country? What sort of feedback, what sort of impact has it had? Let's say if you talk about Africa, if people really taken on board the Brac method of doing things?
Yeah, of course, in countries where we have went in, there are different context has been there.
And I presume every country is unique.
Every country is unique. A lot of the countries we went in were post-conflict countries, so infrastructure, basic infrastructures weren't there. So we haven't developed social enterprises like we have developed in Bangladesh, because there are much poorer countries over there.
Yeah.
Uganda
Well, the
has
need
been
is different.
Need is different. So Uganda has been a huge success story. Microfinance has done very well, which just has converted into a tier 2 commercial bank. So you have a Brac bank in Uganda now. Then on the other hand, we are expanding our education services. We are expanding our various other healthcare models and stuff. We are also kind of contextualizing it in terms of the need of the country. And the other side we are seeing there's a growing opportunity for Brac to play a role is this humanitarian development nexus. So a lot of these humanitarian crises that are happening now around the world are being very protracted. And the biggest example is this one that we have right in our doorsteps of the Rohingya refugees, where you know that Brac has the largest operation now as a responder. So we're working in 9 sectors. But the modus is now very much moved from emergency relief to more like a developmental approach, right? So there are skill building happening, there are education happening.
But this is the thing. This is to me what is really fascinating about the Brac story, is that the notion that now people understand. I'm wondering if you can confirm this vis-a-vis Africa, when various UN organizations, like if you go down to the border area, it's absolutely filled with just about every international organization, donor organization, NGO you can imagine. But everyone knows that, okay, we're offering services and expertise. But right here in this country, you got the one organization who can actually do this better than anyone else. And what I would imagine, has there been kind of a sea change in, let's say, Africa, because of the work Brac has done, the way people envision Bangladesh, in the way they envision, I don't know, the role a developing world, a global south country can actually play in global development? That to me is just the whole change of the mindset is what's really fascinating.
Absolutely. I mean, I think our strategy is, that's exactly what, we're not going to go into too many countries, but wherever we are going to go, we're going to have a much deeper engagement, because transformation takes time. Where Brac is in Bangladesh, took 47 years.
Right.
So international expansion started in 2002. So Uganda has been a big success story for us. We have 4,000 people now. They're 97% are Ugandan people. And so our story has been that Brac in Uganda, or Brac in wherever they are, will be run by the nationals. So that is the ethos and the DNA of would be very much Brac-like. So that is becoming more and more prominent. In Afghanistan, we are running 3,000 girls' schools, unheard of. We are working in Taliban areas as well.
And most of the staff are actually Afghans.
Afghans, and very much because our work is so much built within the community, and that's where the marked difference that happens.
I was going to say, is that a difference? If you have a Western organization, they would have
difference.
They'd have far more of their locals.
Absolutely, and we don't have these high-paying experts coming in and charging a huge consulting fee, running fancy SUVs and stuff. Our approach is very low cost, very much uses the community and the social capital built in, so that even when we are not there, the intervention sustains. So that's built into the design.
And you could say that is actually the Brac model and vision.
Absolutely.
That's what you're doing differently from these Western organizations.
And there's a story to tell there, but unfortunately, this whole global development discourse is dominated by the Western
But this is it. This is
organizations,
exactly
right?
what I think the Brac story is.
Yeah.
Is it's fighting back. It's
Yes.
taking that discourse over and saying, look, we need a seat at the table and we can actually do this better. It shouldn't be people from the West dictating to the rest of us. This is, and the great story of Brac, it seems to me, is an organization from the global South which is leading the world.
Absolutely, and the whole way we look at development, it's not like, it's not charity. It's,
Absolutely.
people living in poverty are not passive recipient of
And I think,
aid,
and that's
right?
because that is the mindset we have because this is where we're
Yeah,
from.
exactly.
It's the entire outlook is entirely different.
Everybody has
Absolutely.
a potential, so you just give them the
Absolutely.
tools
Yeah.
so that they can change themselves.
Thank you, Asif. This has been a wonderful conversation. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I always enjoyed your write-up. Started enjoying your shows now. Thanks.
And thank you for tuning in. This has been BSRM Presents Straight Talk. I'm Dhaka Tribune editor Zafar Sobhan. I've been in conversation with the executive director of Brac, Asif Saleh. So.